Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's installment of our Statehouse Report webinar. I'm very excited to have everyone on the line today. Just as a quick kind of housekeeping item for anyone who is new to GoToWebinar, you should see a control panel to the right of your screen. That's where you can go ahead and ask questions. As we go through our different lobbyist presentations, I'll go ahead and ask questions of each of them. So please leave those for me and we'll keep track of them throughout the report. I think the last thing to remind you of is that our next Statehouse Report webinar is going to be on April 29th. You can go ahead and register for that on our website at cml.org, so please do that. You'll also have a link for that in the written Statehouse Report that comes out next week. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Megan Dollar.
Thank you so much, McKenna. Welcome everyone to our Statehouse Report this week. I'll go ahead and get us started and jump right in. We've got a lot to cover. Just as kind of a quick overview, we are in the last, I think we're nearing the last month of the session at this point. And so things are about to get real interesting. So let me start by talking about House Bill 1024. I think the last time we had a webinar, this bill had not yet passed the legislature. It has done so now. This is the bill that purports to apply a state sales tax, sales and use tax exemption, I should say, on to home rule municipalities that currently tax public school projects. We are asking the governor to veto this piece of legislation, and we're asking home rule tax self-collecting municipalities to join us in that. I'm happy to provide our letter if you're interested and would like to send your own letter to the governor. We are very concerned that this will set a terrible precedent in terms of allowing the legislature to dictate home rule local tax bases. We will have about 10 days, probably starting Monday, I think, in order to convince the governor to act on that. So we shall see. House Bill 1346, this was introduced a couple of weeks ago. What this bill has to do is creates different ratios for both plumbers and electricians in terms of how many apprentices can work with either a master electrician or a journeyman plumber at the same time. Right now in state law, the ratio is 3-to-1, apprentice to master / journeyman. What this bill wants to do is basically say that in the next I think it's by 2024, I can't remember off the top of my head, but in the next few years, eventually the ratio needs to be 1 master / journeyman to 1 apprentice, which is very concerning for local governments. Not only with that, but it also impacts local governments by asking us to add additional work in our permit process. We're opposed to this legislation, CML is, along with several other entities as written right now, mainly because of the impact on building apartments, but additionally because changing the ratios on electricians and plumbers will impact projects and development generally, and we have some concerns around that issue. So that bill will be in committee. I believe it's in Business Affairs and Labor, and that will be in committee Thursday of next week, I believe. I'm going to talk about a couple of law enforcement bills that CML is following. The first ones are within the governor's public safety packages, and these are parked in appropriations right now, waiting for the budget to be settled so that money can be assigned to them. Senate Bill 1, which creates opportunities for local governments to get money should they make land-use decisions that can potentially make streets safer. Senate Bill 5 increases funding to the Peace Officer Mental Health and Community Partnerships Fund, which is a fund that CML helped create and has been very supportive of. And then Senate Bill 145 creates 3 new grant programs, probably the biggest one for us being a program to recruit and retain law enforcement officers. We've had a big shift and a lot of folks have either decided not to be a law enforcement officer anymore or have retired. And so we are lacking in that staffing right now. So we appreciate that kind of help from the state. Senate Bill 23, this is a bill that CML is opposed to along with law enforcement. And what the bill is intending to do is put some guardrails on when an officer, it's referred to as an agent in the bill, when an agent is interrogating a juvenile in a custodial interrogation, I should say. We have some concerns about the broadness of the bill. Certainly as it was introduced, it's been narrowed a little bit to lower some legal standards. Additionally, the bill currently has mandated training for officers, which CML is supportive of, given the potential liability issues should the bill pass. The training right now has a $1.6 million fiscal note. So I don't know what that's going to look like. The bill is in House Appropriations right now. And so we are going to have to determine, or at least the Appropriations Committee is going to have to determine how much they are going to want to fund that, or if they want to. But that's one, if the bill stays as is with the training and some of the lower standards, I think CML can remove our opposition. But if that changes, I think we're going to keep opposing it. And so that's why I haven't removed our opposition yet. Senate Bill 32 just passed the legislature. This is a bill that CML was neutral on. This bill creates a place at the state level where businesses can apply for it's kind of a one-stop shop for business licenses and sales tax licenses, where they apply for the license and then the license is automatically distributed to the local governments. We still retain all of our business licensing authority. And if you're a brick and mortar business, you definitely still need to pay fees and comply with all the regulatory authority within the business license. So that was the deal that CML worked on, and we ultimately were neutral. And I do expect the governor to sign that piece of legislation. Senate Bill 97, this is the whistleblower bill. Back in 2020, a bill passed creating additional employee whistleblower protections within public health emergencies. What Senate Bill 97 does is actually remove the need for a public health emergency and just generally blanket keeps these protections. And CML, along with the business community as employers, are opposed to that legislation. That has passed the Senate and is now will be heard next week in Public Health and Behavioral Services. I can never remember the name of that committee. Anyway, in the Public Health Committee. So in the House. So CML will be opposing that bill. Okay, let's talk housing. There's a massive housing package right now that's been introduced. And there will be a homelessness package that will be introduced that I haven't seen any bills specifically, but I have been in some stakeholder meetings that we should see a $200 million package to provide resources to municipalities, local governments generally, to serve persons experiencing homelessness. So we'll want to look for that. In the meantime, we've got 5, I think it is right now, housing bills. The first one is 1304, and this is this is the local government and nonprofit grant funding bill. What the bill does is create a grant fund within the Department of Housing for specifically local governments and nonprofits to essentially will provide gap funding for projects that are almost ready to go. This is all going to be funded with ARPA money, so it'll need to be spent by 2026. And so a lot of these projects will be pretty shovel ready. There was a lot of debate within 1304 as to what the definition of affordable housing is. Between the parties, between housing advocates, counties and municipalities, we landed on taking a regional approach, still utilizing area median income as the sort of standard on what is affordable, but increasing those depending on where in the state. So the metro area having a standard of 80% affordable housing being up to 80% area median income. In the rural communities being up to 140% area median income, and then in the rural resort communities up to 170% area median income. So that same discussion is also happening on Senate Bill 159, which is the revolving loan fund that's being created. Also, that will provide access as well to local governments and nonprofits to develop affordable housing. That that debate is still happening on whether it'll be regional approach and whether or not and what the actual percentages will look like. CML is supportive of both of those bills and certainly was as introduced as well. Senate Bill 146 is a bill to fund the middle income program in the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. This bill, or the middle income program, provides rental assistance to individuals that are still rent cost burdened, but don't necessarily meet the needs or the requirements of the low income voucher program. And so that's one that will help keep people in their homes. Senate Bill 160, excuse me. Senate Bill 160 creates a program that provides funding to residents of mobile home parks. Should they be interested in purchasing the land that the park is on, if the park owner is interested in selling, this fund will be available to them to potentially give those residents the resources to potentially buy the park. CML is also supporting that one. And then 1282, this is a bill to incentivize the creation of modular homes. And it does it in kind of two ways. It provides funding for it, and then also provides incentives for companies to create jobs here and create additional manufactured housing. So that's one that CML is supporting as well. So as you can probably tell, the housing problem is pretty complicated, and so we're going at it from a few different areas. Another bill I want to note is House Bill 1287. This is protections for mobile home residents. CML is supportive of this bill. The bulk of the bill is centered around well, there's a lot in the bill, but I'll focus on two pieces. One, and this was CML's priority starting in the base that came up through our policy committee process, which was creating a better system for an opportunity to purchase for mobile home residents. What was currently in law is not working. The timelines aren't long enough. The mobile home park owners don't need to take any offers from the residents seriously. And so this bill improves that process and also allows local governments to potentially take part in those offers as well. So CML is supporting that legislation. There is also language in there that does some lot rent stabilization. I think it caps it at 3% annually right now. So that's also something that we're following in the bill as well. That bill is parked in appropriations right now, but I expect it to hit the House floor pretty quickly here. All right, one bill that got introduced yesterday, and I cannot remember the bill number. Do you remember the bill number? Okay, we'll come back to that one. Let me talk about collective bargaining first. So I have reason to believe it may be introduced today. What I don't think the bill will contain is anything relating to municipalities. I think the bill will specifically impact counties and higher education. Thank you. And then, but I do know that CML will still be opposed to the legislation with concerns that if counties are mandated to collectively bargain via the state, municipalities would likely be next in line. I think you're going to see a lot of the groups that were going to oppose it, were they included, still oppose it for similar reasons that CML is opposing it. Additionally, because it only applies to counties and higher ed, there are several employee groups that have actually been left out of the legislation, and I believe that they will also oppose it for that reason. So a pretty interesting dynamic on that. I've not seen the most recent draft on bill paper because we are not in it. So, that should drop today, although it's been pulled back about 15 different times when it was about to drop during the session. So more to come on that. And then House Bill 1362. This is a bill that's being brought by the Colorado Energy Office that CML took an opposed position on back in February when we saw early drafts of it. The bill mandates local governments adopt specific energy codes by specific periods of time. So essentially what it does, and I'm simplifying a little bit, but essentially what it does is it says the Colorado Energy Office can determine the codes that local governments adopt, and local governments must enforce them in that way. We've got a lot of concerns on that. We're very clear in our position about that building codes are a local decision. Land use is a local decision. The state should not be involved in that. And we have we do have some municipalities that have certainly looked at energy codes. Another thing to consider when we're talking about really any kind of code at this very moment is just kind of the impact on housing and development generally. And I think in addition to CML, there's a lot of opposition from housing developers because it will, should that bill pass and create stricter energy codes, you are going to see higher costs in development. So it's really a question of, when we live in a state where we're about 300,000 units short on housing, do we want to add additional costs? And so, CML certainly has taken a big priority on housing this year, and that impact will be significant. CML is opposed to that legislation, if I didn't say that already. So with that, I will complete my report. If there's anything I missed, I'm happy to take questions, and I will kick it on over to Heather.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Megan. So the first bill I want to talk about, elections, House Bill 1273. This is protections for election officials. This is the bill which extends anti-doxing statutes to election officials and election workers, which includes municipal clerks, staff, election judges, among others, on Title 31 municipal elections. It also makes it illegal to threaten or coerce an election official in relation to the performance of their election duties. The bill passed the House State Affairs yesterday on a vote of 8-2. I was there and testified in support of the bill. It's scheduled for House second reading on Monday, and I'll be there lobbying support of it. I believe that it will pass the House without too big of a fight there. The next bill I want to go over, this bill has not been introduced. This is a bill we've been hearing about a lot around CORA, Colorado Open Records Act. So we've been hearing from the Press Association that they're going to run this bill, and originally it would have exempted media from having to pay research and retrieval fees, which we pushed back on really, really hard. And based on that persistent pushback, there will not be language in the bill that exempts media from research and retrieval fees. I still have not seen a draft of that bill. However, the Press Association lobbyists did walk me through the bill. So take this with a grain of salt. There may be more in this bill if it's dropped. But they described the bill. They want to make sure that municipalities and counties are not charging people for electronic documents, which can be emailed, which I believe there's already language in the statute that talks about that, but they want to make that more clear. There will be language that states that you cannot charge for the transmission of documents, but you can charge for the compilation of documents. And then they want to get some consistency between the Colorado Open Records Act and CCJRA, which is the Criminal Justice Records Act. It's unclear how they are going to get consistency between those statutes, but that will be in the bill. And they want itemized receipts from the governmental entity on what they're being charged for. And then she did mention that there would be some record retention issues, but those would only apply to the state. So we'll see what comes out of this. I mean, I think that there will definitely be issues in this bill if it is to be introduced that we will have problems with, and it's unclear kind of still how they're going to go about that. So I'm waiting to see more, and I'm waiting with bated breath, I guess. House Bill 1272, this is the repeal of attorney's fees on motions to dismiss. This is the bill which would narrow public entities' ability to collect attorney's fees on tort cases if the plaintiff can't meet the minimum standard for moving litigation forward. If we get a motion to dismiss, currently we can collect those attorney's fees. There was a strike below added to this bill in the House, which narrowed it, but ultimately we still think it's too broad. It's up next week in Judiciary Committee, in the Senate Judiciary Committee. We're opposed. We'll testify as opposed. I do think it will likely pass the Judiciary Committee, considering that 2 of the bill sponsors make up the 3 Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I do expect that to pass out of committee. So we're focused on the Senate floor with this one. And I would just ask that everyone check with your attorney on this bill, and please reach out to your senator about it if you have an issue with it. We also have a position paper on our website, which I'd be happy to send your way. Please contact me with any questions that you have. But this one is important. And I think we have a chance of killing it on the floor if we can convince enough folks. So Senate Bill 2, this is resources for volunteer firefighters. This is the bill that extended state cash funds to fire districts that were made up mostly of volunteer firefighters. You will remember a long time ago in the House, an amendment was added which also included a behavioral health trust fund, which we had some issues with. So we worked with the sponsor. They changed that amendment so that it was funded solely by the state, which we thought was much more appropriate. That did make it on to the bill this week, and that bill has passed Senate third reading. So we will be supporting that bill as it makes its way. The last one I want to talk about is House Bill 1363. This just dropped yesterday. It's the Accountability to Taxpayers Special Districts Bill. So this is being sponsored by Representative Weissman and Representative Basenecker in the House. And the aim, we've been hearing, for the past, session and even before that a little bit, Representative Weissman has been talking about how he wants to run a special districts bill. So this is it. There's a lot in the bill. His aim is to increase the accountability of special districts, and then also to empower local governments to take a more active role in the oversight of metro districts. So there's a lot in the bill. I'm still unpacking it, but I did have a chance to just go through a few things that I just wanted to point out as it relates to local government. So part of the bill, it expands existing requirements on the information that metro districts have to include on their public websites, to include what's in their service plan or anything that's adopted by ordinance or resolution by a municipality or a county. The other big part of this bill is that when a special district, there are instances in which a special district is created and approved by a county entity, and then throughout the time, a municipality grows around that special district. So that special district is now 100% encompassed within the municipality. This bill would change. So the oversight of that special district, if it is now located 100% within a municipality, is controlled by the municipality instead of the county. Currently, there's an option in statute where they can petition for that. This would automatically change that based on my reading. And so there are different statutes that kind of make that change happen. It also specifies that there's additional information that has to be included with the financial plan of a new district to submit to a municipality and a county along with their service plan. It also specifies that for any special district that has property that's zoned for residential, it prohibits a local government from approving a service plan if the district debt by that entity with respect to any director has a conflict of interest. So that's an interesting provision, and I'll look more into that. Sorry, that's part of that. It expands the circumstances in which approval is required from municipality or county to include any action of special districts that's outside or inconsistent with their service plan. And then it also authorizes a municipality or a county to offset the costs incurred by reviewing these service plans to allow us to, it authorizes us to charge a fee in if we are reviewing the operations of a district. That's a better way of saying that. And then in certain circumstances, municipalities require that a special district have to file an application for finding of reasonable diligence. Currently in statute, that's every 5 years, and the bill allows that to be an annual requirement. So obviously a lot in here. I'm happy to answer questions, but as I mentioned, I'm still getting through everything in the bill. And I know that Robert is on here and he has a lot of knowledge in this area as well, so he can help me answer questions as well. And that's what I have.
Okay. Lots happening for all of us today, this week, and the last couple of weeks, so I will just get to it. On Tuesday of this week, I testified before the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee on 2 different bills. The first one is Senate Bill 175, which makes it illegal to text on your phone while driving a car. Currently, this is not allowed for people under the age of 18, but this would make it applicable to people of all ages across the state. CML supported similar legislation in the past, and we are supportive this year as well. That bill got out of committee unanimously, and I expect it to be voted on by Senate Appropriations in the next week, and hopefully make it out of the Senate next week as well. The other bill that I testified on in support of is Senate Bill 193. This bill creates air quality improvement grants for local governments. These grants include industrial and manufacturing operations clean air grants, and this allows local governments to apply for grant funding for energy efficiency projects, renewable energy projects, beneficial electrification projects, and there's, I think, 8 other opportunities for local governments to apply for grant funding within that program. It also creates the Community Access to E-Bikes grant program, which offers money to local governments to give greater access to electric bicycles throughout their communities. The bill was amended on Tuesday to also include accessories for e-bikes. This makes it so a local government grant could include money for e-bikes and for equipment to lock your e-bikes. So that makes it more accessible for those who wouldn't be able to afford an e-bike. Otherwise, 2 other grants that the bill creates but is not necessarily available to local governments is a diesel truck emissions reduction grant program, which seeks to replace current diesel trucks with newer models of diesel trucks. I believe the committee members and proponents are still working on language on this specific grant program. And then the electrifying school buses program, which is available to school districts and charter schools to electrify their school buses. So that bill passed out of committee and is also in Senate appropriations right now, and I expect that to be heard this week. Lots of things are still a little stuck in Senate appropriations, and Jacqueline will tell you about that when she talks about the budget after I finish going through all of my stuff. The next thing I want to talk about is House Bill 1338. This bill was a orbital bill brought by the Joint Budget Committee that passed through the House last week, and we caught it this week when it was being heard by the Senate. This bill was a little concerning to us. What the bill does is allows the Department of Revenue to take a continuous diversion from the Highway Users Tax Fund off the top funding, so it would impact the available Highway Users Tax Fund to our local governments for road and bridge and other transportation projects. So it was good that we caught this, and I spoke with the members of the Joint Budget Committee, and we were able to amend this bill to not make it a continuous diversion and to only make it a one-time diversion, so that the Department of Revenue has to come back to not only municipalities, but to counties, the Department of Public Safety, as well as the Department of Transportation to figure out another way to fund what they wanted to fund in that bill. HUTF is very important to us, and I made sure that the JVC knew it. So that was a huge win for us this week. That amendment got on the bill, and the House agreed with that amendment today, and it repassed. So that is the final vote for that bill, and it will head to the governor's desk shortly. Let's see. The next bill I would like to discuss is House Bill 1355. This is the creation of a producer responsibility program for recycling. This bill was heard by the Energy and Environment Committee yesterday and this morning because the bill hearing started at 10 p.m. and it ended at 2 a.m. this morning. So I am quite tired. What this bill does is create a producer responsibility organization that would require producers, so think brand name producers like Coca-Cola or New Belgium, to pay into a system with dues that are based on the recyclability and weight of their packaging. And those dues would therein pay for recycling throughout the state of Colorado. That's a very high level explainer of what the bill does, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer more specifics. But the essential goal of this bill is to make recycling more accessible, convenient, and equitable throughout the entire state. The bill would end up saving local governments money on recycling programs, as they could get reimbursed through the program, and it also retains autonomy for our local governments and municipalities to maintain how they want to offer recycling services through in their own cities. So we are very supportive of this bill, and again, happy to answer any other specific questions for you all on that. So moving right along, since I have a lot to talk about, House Bill 1326 is a bill brought to us by Senate Democrats, a bipartisan bill regarding the fentanyl crisis in Colorado. Pardon me. This bill will be heard by the House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday afternoon. What this bill does broadly is addresses fentanyl crisis through targeting distributors of fentanyl. It makes it a crime to distribute fentanyl. And I know that the details of how much fentanyl is distributed and what level of crime that is still being negotiated and worked out. I know that the House leadership has been in continuous discussions with law enforcement regarding the specifics of the crimes that are outlined in the bill. What the introduced version of the bill does not do is make it a crime to simply possess fentanyl. What's included in the bill is a possession with intent to distribute fentanyl. I know that this part is again being heavily negotiated, and there are a lot of discussions going on with House leadership and with members of each caucus and with interested parties, including law enforcement representatives. So there will be a lot of discussion on Tuesday about that. What I do want to focus on is reasons that CML is supporting the bill, and that is the harm reduction measures that are included in this bill. It is expansive harm reduction measures that will help our local communities address this crisis at a level at the local level. That includes education and treatment programs for those who have substance abuse problems and those who have been arrested with substance abuse problems. It includes funding for opioid antagonists and Narcan to save lives when people are going through an overdose, or to help them wean off opioids in substance abuse treatment. There's also some requirements regarding jails and Department of Corrections and how they should be treating those with substance abuse issues while they're in custody. And that is just a partial list of the many harm reduction measures. There is money, I think $20 million appropriated in this bill from the behavioral health ARPA funds to help fund more opioid treatments and kind of the substance abuse harm reduction measures that are outlined in the bill. Again, happy to answer questions about that as they come up. Next thing I want to talk about quickly is House Bill 1067. This is the bill that it was heard in House Judiciary months ago, it seems like. It requires municipal courts to hold a bond hearing for those who have been detained in a jail within 48 hours of the municipal court receiving notice from the jail. CML heavily negotiated this bill with the sponsors of the bill, and the bill, as it's passed out of the House today, requires the court to notify the jail to notify the court before the 48-hour clock begins. It also pushes back the effective date for municipal courts, and so that they have time to budget and prepare for this measure. And it also makes other clarifying language about when a municipal court has to see a person who's been detained. This bill passed out of appropriations this morning, and it passed out the House on second reading this morning as well. There were a couple of amendments that were added from the Colorado District Attorney's Council and from our sheriffs to make some cleanup language and kind of clarify the grant program that's outlined for the Colorado District Attorneys, but it does not have impact on our the CML's language that we were able to secure in that bill. So that bill will receive its final vote in the House on Monday, and then it will head over to the Senate. The last thing I would like to touch on is Senate Bill 196. This is a bill that was introduced as a result of the Behavioral Health Task Force that met this interim. This is the Criminal Justice Behavioral Health Task Force bill. So this provides it establishes an early intervention, deflection, and redirection from the criminal justice system grant program. So it's meant to divert people from the court system and make sure that they receive behavioral health treatment that they need. CML is supporting this bill based on the available grant funding that's included, but one thing I wanted to note is CML is working with the sponsors to include an amendment that would provide that would make an allowable use of the grant program for a local government to establish a text reminder program for municipal courts. This, I believe, will make it easier for our municipal courts to comply with the previously mentioned House Bill 1067, that 48-hour bond hearing bill, and it will also defer people from the courts, from the municipal court system, because they will not be being arrested for failing to appear, because they'll have that reminder that text message reminder. So I believe that amendment will be included in the bill when it's heard in committee, but as I believe it has not been scheduled yet. So I know that was a very long list, and I'm happy to answer questions.
We do have one quick question for you. So will House Bill 1363 special districts have a Senate sponsor, and does that make a difference if it doesn't?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So it does not currently have a Senate sponsor listed. It cannot move to the Senate if it does not have a Senate sponsor. They will get a Senate sponsor.
Yeah.
It's just probably, sometimes it happens where you introduce a bill and then get your Senate sponsor after that. But I believe based on some other special districts bills, they will definitely get a Senate sponsor.
And per the rules, they have to get one before it passes on
Right.
third reading. And
Otherwise, it just stays
on the calendar.
on the calendar, and it, I mean, could die on the calendar, but this one will not. It will move forward.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, if nobody has questions for Megan, go ahead.
She'll be back. So I'll move into my report. All right, so House Bill 1064, the prohibiting flavored tobacco and nicotine bill, was up in committee earlier this week. We are neutral on this legislation, as you all know, because we see the importance of the public health crisis for our teens and our youth. But we also see the other side of the local control aspect and the potential fiscal aspect to this. So we've stayed neutral in this conversation, but for the one amendment that was added in the first House committee that it was run in, that would allow for age-restricted premises to still sell these products. This amendment would have required these products to have labels on each one of them, and would have increased the regulations that our local licensing authority would have had to enforce, and then given a special permit and permit fee solely to the state licensing authority, while increasing the local licensing authority enforcement responsibilities. And so we had a problem with that, with how that was drafted, and with the idea that we were not exactly consulted in how that was put together. And so we are happy to report that that amendment was removed in committee earlier this week. So it is back to being prohibiting the sale. They have exempted some of the more adult forms of these flavors, like cigars and things like that, but it is it's not just specifically for age-restricted premises like that amendment was going to have it be. So that is now moving to the Appropriations Committee for its next hearing. House Bill 1093, the updates to the bingo and raffles bill. We are neutral on this bill because we did get on it, and that has passed the Senate on second reading this morning. So again, that's the House bill passing the Senate on seconds. It most likely will move through on thirds as well, but we are good to go on that one. House Bill 1278 is the Behavioral Health Administration bill. We don't technically have a position on this one, but just wanted to give a quick update, since the creation of the Behavioral Health Administration is kind of what is the impetus for all of the behavioral health bills that we have taken some positions on. I know Megan mentioned the one on the criminal justice, but we do have a couple that I'll mention as well. The creation of the administration has to happen before those other bills can happen, because that's what all of the money is funneling through. And so just as an update on that bill, it is going to the committee of the whole. It did pass appropriations this morning. So that is something that's very important for all of these behavioral health ARPA dollars that are coming through to the state. So we are just monitoring that, but that is probably a good thing to keep an eye on. So House Bill 1281, one of the behavioral health bills, Behavioral Healthcare Continuum Gap Grant Program. CML is in a supportive position because this bill is $90 million for hang on, let me pull this up really quick. $90 million, 45 of it goes to community investment grants and 45 for children, youth, and family services grants. And local governments can apply for that to be able to provide these behavioral health services to their communities. And so we are supportive of that. We've been involved in the stakeholder process, as well as my predecessor was on the task force throughout the interim process coming up with these recommendations. So we are very appreciative of the sponsors for making sure that we are involved in this whole process. And this bill did pass through committee earlier this week. Thanks to Megan for doing my testimony for me since I was in another committee, but we are watching that one. That will go to appropriations next. So keeping an eye on that. House Bill 1306, the Broadband Deployment Board Grant Process. CML was in a support if amended position. It did get amended in the way that we would like for it to get amended, so we are not supporting this bill. This program is because we are getting ARPA dollars from the federal government to support the deployment of broadband across the state. The treasury requirements are different than the deployment board requirements in Colorado. And so for us to be able to use the $35 million that this is referencing from last year's bill that was created for these ARPA dollars, we have to align with the treasury requirements. And so that is what this bill is trying to do, to align with it so we can quickly get these dollars out the door to these projects that are going to provide broadband dollars to rural areas that do not have it. So the amendment that we were working on that did get adopted is there's a comment period for stakeholders and people who are affected by the broadband applications. Originally it was 60 days. The bill was going to change it to 30 days to be able to give our local governments and their employees and groups enough time to get the information and data together and the right people in the room. We advocated for 45 days, which is what kind of the consensus was in the room. So that did get changed to 45 days. And so that bill is moving forward. It should be on second reading, I believe either Monday or Tuesday of next week. It was supposed to be today, but it was postponed to next week for second reading. So we are excited about getting more money to funding for broadband in rural Colorado. Senate Bill 120, the regulation of kratom processors, did pass the Senate this week, so that we are neutral again on that one because it does have our amendment allowing for local governments to have more strict ordinances than what's in the bill. And that did pass the Senate, so it has been introduced in the House, so we are waiting for its first committee hearing in the House. Senate Bill 149, the improved marijuana industry regulations. CML was in a support if amended position. Last week, we requested 2 amendments. What this bill would do would require the Department of Revenue Marijuana Division to conduct compliance checks. And then also it had a piece on it for work groups and task forces to ensure that non-industry group partners were involved in the conversations and rulemaking. The 2 pieces that we worked on amendments for is allowing for local licensing authorities to have access to the seed to sale, because we believe that you all should not, and the clerks believe that you all should not have to put in your requests with everyone else and just be in the queue of getting your responses. We think that you should be able to access and check out the information that these licensees are giving to you in a more effective and efficient manner. As well as the second amendment was to add local licensing authorities as a designated group that should be a non-industry partner participating in these work groups and task forces. The committee hearing was slightly contentious, to say the least. And the bill was postponed indefinitely in committee last week. I will say that what came out of it, there were a few positive things that came out of it. One is that the sponsors have decided that they are working with the Legislative Audit Committee and they are requesting an audit of the Marijuana Enforcement Division through that audit committee. And second, we have continued conversations with the industry as far as the marijuana industry, as far as the two issues that we had in the bill, of how we could work with them to help get those things accomplished outside of that legislation. So stay tuned for more information on that, but I'm still working on trying to get those two pieces solidified without going through that legislative process. So I will update you when I have any more information on that. Senate Bill 187, supporting programs for persons who wander, is up in committee. Its first committee hearing on Monday. We are supportive of that bill. This gives grants to local governments to help with senior citizens and people who have dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that that have a tendency to wander, and helping find them and grant programs to help with this problem in local governments. So we are supportive of this. This is part of behavioral health as well. On the budget, which Megan touched on a second ago, the budget did pass the Senate today, or not today, yesterday. What day is today? I think it's a Friday. Thank you. The budget passed the Senate yesterday. There were 12 amendments to the budget in the House and 16 amendments to the budget in the Senate. When it came through to the Senate stripped all the House amendments, as they usually do, and did all their own amendments. Now they're going to take it to conference committee and most likely strip all the amendments back off. So that will probably happen in the next week or so, and we will get our new budget back. So stay tuned on that. It should be interesting. There were a few of note, like the state trooper pay increase did pass both chambers, and I didn't. That was coming out of the HUTF fund, but they did mention that it was something that's that is in our laws that they are supposed to get that increase. And so they committed to actually going back and reviewing and making sure that they are keeping up with what the laws state that they're supposed to be doing. So there are a few things they are going to review from those, but we are, we'll see what comes back from the conference committee. Sure.
So basically what the law says is that state troopers are able to take off the top funding from HUTF up to a certain percentage cap. This is a salary increase for state troopers that stays within that cap. So it technically does take off the top, but it's still within their statutory right under law regarding HUTF. But
Thank you.
Great explanation.
Thank you.
And Tony Graham's.
Yeah.
No. Do you want to talk to me?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the amendments adds an additional, I believe it's $6 million for Tony Graham's youth services programs, which is a program that municipalities often, it doesn't usually go directly to municipalities, but it's programs that help youth and it's not recidivism, but
Just like after school program.
yeah, it's like after school programs, boys and girls clubs, basically youth, keeping youth out of crime and things like that. So that's something that's important to municipalities, and we did get additional funding for that program. It's traditionally not funded to appropriate levels every year, and so they usually come back during the budget time to ask for more money for that, and that did get on this year again. So we're happy to see that.
Yes, those two might stick.
Yeah.
So finally, just two things that one has not been introduced yet, the registered manager bill. We are most likely going to see a bill come out soon that will remove the registered manager requirements, licensing requirements for the hotel and restaurant license. We've been working with the Colorado Restaurant Association on this, and basically registered manager is not referenced anywhere in statute besides the requirement to pay the fee and license them. And so we've just been working with them on how to make this a little bit more of a streamlined approach, what the fee is going to look like and what this legislation is going to look like. So this should come out probably in the next week or so, but we will share that when we have it. And then lastly, on the undergrounding of utility lines, I should have some more information this week as far as what that's going to look like. It does not look like it's going to be legislation this year, but we have found some sort of outside the legislature compromise that we will be sharing with all of our municipalities that are Excel franchisees. So stay tuned, we will share, but thanks so much.
Thank you. McKenna, any questions?
Yes, we did have one more come up.
Cool.
What is the next step for the extended producer responsibility bill?
Great question. The sponsors of the bill and the proponents, CML included, have been working really hard with people who have concerns about the program and the bill is drafted. So we're currently working on amendments. This includes amendments to help out our friends in the ag community, help out our press corps by excluding local newspapers, and then also some amendments to help out our small craft breweries. So we're working on those right now and through the weekend up until Tuesday. The bill will be heard in Energy and Environment Committee on Wednesday morning for the vote for action only. And then it will head to the House floor, or to appropriations and then to the House floor.
Awesome, thank you. That looks like all of the questions that we had for today. So thank you everyone for attending this afternoon. We appreciate your time. Just as a reminder, again, next Statehouse Report webinar is going to be April 29th. You can register for that at cml.org. So please go ahead and do that, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much and have a good one.